There is a sacred power hidden in the stillness of the early morning, a power that is often overlooked because the world is still asleep. When the night is at its quietest, and the first whispers of dawn begin to stir, something holy takes place. The air feels different, the heart beats slower, and the soul becomes more open to the voice of God. At this hour, heaven feels near, as if the veil between earth and eternity is thinner, inviting us to step closer to His presence. Psalm 63:1 says, "O God, you are my God. Early will I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh longs for you in a dry and thirsty land where there is no water." These words are not mere poetry. They are a living call to rise before the day begins, to place God at the center of our hearts before the distractions of life rush in. To seek Him early is to declare that His presence matters more than comfort, more than sleep, more than anything else that calls for our attention. This hour is not like any other. It is a spiritual invitation, a gentle whisper that calls us to rise and pray. To kneel in the quiet of the early morning is to show heaven and earth where our allegiance lies. It is to proclaim that our strength does not come from ourselves, but from the One who renews our spirit. It is to confess that our hope is not built on the shifting sands of circumstance, but on the eternal rock who cannot be moved. When you enter into prayer at this time, you are aligning your steps with His purpose. You are creating a sacred space in which His whispers can be heard more clearly, where your spirit can be fortified by His promises. The silence is not empty, it is full of His presence. The stillness is not void, it is alive with His Spirit. Every moment in that quiet hour becomes an offering, a declaration that your day belongs to Him. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us that our battles are not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces that seek to steal our peace and weaken our faith. To rise and pray while the world rests is to step onto the battlefield equipped with the armor of God. It is to fight with faith rather than fear, with prayer rather than panic. It is to stand in the authority of His word and declare that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 40:31 promises that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength, that they will soar on wings like eagles, run and not grow weary, walk and not faint. When you choose to meet God in the early hours, you are waiting on Him, placing your hope in His timing and His strength. You are telling your weary soul, "Here is where I am renewed." The burdens you carried from yesterday begin to lift. The anxieties of tomorrow lose their grip, and the peace of God begins to anchor your heart. This is why waking to pray in the early morning is not just discipline. It is an act of love. It is a way of saying, "Lord, I long for you more than I long for rest. I thirst for you more than I thirst for comfort." It is a bold declaration to the spiritual realm that your life is anchored in Him. And in return, He meets you with His strength, His peace, and His unfailing love. Think of it this way. Every day is a journey, and the morning is the moment you set your direction. If you begin your day rooted in God's presence, then every step you take will be guided by His Spirit. If you rise with prayer, then you walk with peace. If you begin with worship, then you carry His strength into every decision, every challenge, and every conversation. My friend, the early morning is not just another hour, it is a holy hour. It is a moment that can transform the way you face the entire day. Do not let it pass unnoticed. Let your heart be filled with expectation. As you rise to seek Him, come with reverence, come with faith, come with a spirit ready to listen. For it is in this stillness that you will hear His whispers. It is in this quiet that you will find His shelter. And it is in this sacred pause that you will discover the strength to walk in His purpose. The invitation is open, and it is for you. God waits in the stillness, ready to pour out His peace and renew your spirit. All He asks is that you come. Rise in faith, even when the world sleeps. and you will find that heaven is already awake, ready to meet you, ready to strengthen you, ready to walk with you into the day ahead. In the stillness of the morning, something shifts within the soul. It is not only about rising early, but about making space for God before anything else has a chance to fill your heart. The quiet becomes a sanctuary, and in that sanctuary the Spirit of God meets you. There you find peace that the world cannot give, strength that your own body cannot produce, and clarity that no human wisdom can replace. Let me ask you this. Have you ever experienced that moment when the world was silent, and your heart felt unusually calm, almost as if heaven itself was near? Perhaps it was in the early hours before the sun rose, or perhaps in a rare quiet moment during a busy day. Did you notice how your spirit seemed lighter, how your thoughts became clearer, and how your heart found comfort without any explanation? Those are often the whispers of God, reminding you that His presence is near and His peace is real. I would love to know your story. If you have ever felt God's peace in a quiet moment of prayer, or if you are longing to experience that kind of stillness with Him, please share it in the comments below. When you write your testimony or your prayer, you are not only blessing your own soul, but you are encouraging others who may be struggling to find that peace. And when I see your words, it lets me know that these prayers I share are not echoing into emptiness, but that they are touching hearts, bringing comfort and creating a community of faith. That is something deeply precious to me, and I want to thank you for it from the depths of my heart. The early morning hours are more than just quiet. They are powerful. They are a time to declare to the spiritual world that your life belongs to God. Each prayer you lift in that sacred stillness becomes a shield for your soul and a torch that lights your path. The distractions of the day may try to pull you in 100 different directions, but when you start in His presence, you carry an anchor with you. You are not swayed as easily, not overwhelmed as quickly, not shaken by every storm. Isaiah 26:3 tells us, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you." This promise is not tied to circumstances. It is tied to where your mind and your heart rest. In the quiet of the morning, when you fix your thoughts on Him, He responds by filling you with peace that remains, even when the noise of the day returns. That peace is not fragile. It does not break under pressure. It is steady, strong, and sustaining. Think about your own mornings. How do you usually begin your day? Do you reach first for your phone? Or do you reach for prayer? Do you fill your heart with headlines? Or do you fill it with His Word? The truth is, whatever we choose in the first moments often sets the tone for everything that follows. If we begin with worry, we tend to carry anxiety all day. If we begin with gratitude and prayer, we carry that peace into every place we go. My friend, I want to encourage you to pause and reflect. What would it look like if you intentionally chose to begin your mornings in God's presence, even for just a few minutes? Imagine the difference it could make, not just in your emotions, but in your perspective, your decisions, your strength to face challenges. Imagine your family noticing a calmer, gentler spirit in you. Imagine your coworkers seeing patience where there used to be frustration. That is the fruit of quiet time with God. And here is where I want you to join me. Share in the comments how you long to begin your mornings. Do you desire peace instead of stress? Do you desire clarity instead of confusion? Do you desire God's protection over your home and your loved ones? Write it down. Let it be a declaration of faith. Every comment becomes more than just words. It becomes part of a collective prayer rising to heaven. And when I read them, it reminds me that we are standing together, that these prayers are not just mine but ours, united in seeking the same God who listens to every voice. This is why your presence here matters so much. It is not only about me speaking, but about us walking this journey together. Knowing that you are here, seeking God alongside me, is a gift I do not take for granted. Every time I see your prayers and reflections, it confirms that God is at work, weaving together hearts from different places into one family of faith. So thank you truly for being here, for sharing, for adding your voice to this sacred conversation. As you rise each morning, remember, the quiet is not empty. It is full of God's presence. The stillness is not lifeless. It is alive with His Spirit. And when you choose to step into that stillness, you are stepping into His shelter, His peace, and His guidance. Hold on to that truth and let it carry you into every moment of your day. In the stillness of the morning, when the heart turns fully toward God, something profound begins to happen. It is not only a shift in emotion, but a transformation deep within the soul. Fear starts to lose its grip. Worry fades into the background, and the mind finds clarity that the world could never provide. To rise early in prayer is to step into a sanctuary, a place where heaven meets earth, and where the promises of God come alive in a personal and powerful way. The scriptures remind us again and again that God is not distant, but ever present. Psalm 46:1 declares, God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. When you kneel in the quiet morning hours, you are not speaking into silence. You are speaking into the very presence of the One who holds all things together. This truth anchors the heart. It reassures us that no matter how heavy the burdens, no matter how uncertain the path, we are never abandoned. The discipline of seeking God early is not about rigid routine, but about realignment. It is about recalibrating the heart and mind so that everything else in the day flows from His presence. Without this foundation, life pulls us in 1,000 directions. But with it, the soul finds stability, like a tree planted by streams of water whose roots go deep and whose leaves do not wither. In the stillness of morning prayer, you are drawing from that stream, allowing His Spirit to nourish what is weary and revive what has grown weak. There is also strength in surrender. Prayer is not simply about speaking requests, but about laying down the need to control. It is confessing, Lord, I cannot carry this on my own, but I trust that you can. This act of trust is what transforms worry into peace. It is what allows a restless heart to rest, not because every answer is clear, but because the One who knows all is near. In surrender, the soul finds freedom. Consider the promise in Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. These words are not abstract, they are a lifeline. In the early morning, when you meditate on them, they become a shield around your heart. Every doubt that whispers, you are alone, is silenced by the reminder, I am with you. Every fear that says you cannot endure is confronted with the assurance, I will strengthen you. In those quiet hours, you are not only receiving strength, you are being equipped for the day ahead. Prayer fortifies the spirit to face what lies beyond the morning. It is in prayer that courage is born, wisdom is given, and discernment sharpens. Life may bring challenges, conversations that test your patience, responsibilities that feel overwhelming, or decisions that weigh heavily on your mind. But when you rise from that place of prayer, you rise not in your own strength, but in His. The spiritual battles of life are also fought here. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us that our struggles are not against flesh and blood, but against unseen forces. To pray is to take up the armor of God before the battle begins. It is to cover yourself and those you love in protection that no enemy can penetrate. It is to speak life where despair tries to linger, to declare truth where lies attempt to take root, and to affirm faith where fear seeks to dominate. The early morning is not just a quiet time. It is a time of victory. This is why the ancients and the faithful throughout history have risen in the early hours to seek Him. They knew that this practice was more than tradition. It was the secret to living with unshakable peace. It was the key to walking with stability when everything around them was shifting. They understood that to begin the day in His presence was to begin already standing in strength. And so it is for you. When you choose to rise in the stillness, you are stepping into promises that never fail. You are taking hold of words that outlast every circumstance. You are drinking deeply from a well that never runs dry. And as you do, you will discover a resilience that surprises even you, a peace that sustains, and a joy that carries you through both the calm and the storm. The quiet morning becomes more than just a time on the clock. It becomes an altar. At that altar, the soul bends, the spirit listens, and heaven responds. Each whispered prayer is received. Each burden surrendered is carried, and each tear shed in his presence is gathered. Nothing is wasted in that sacred hour. Everything offered is transformed by his love and his power. This is the gift of early morning prayer. It is where strength is found, not the kind that fades when the day grows long, but the kind that endures because it is rooted in God himself. To rise early in his presence is to walk into the day already victorious, already assured, already at peace. And that is a treasure beyond measure. There is a deep freedom that comes when the soul learns to surrender. In the quiet of the morning, when the world is hushed and distractions have not yet taken root, the heart finds its most honest posture before God. To kneel in prayer at this time is to admit that you cannot carry everything alone. It is to acknowledge that strength, wisdom, and direction are found not in self-sufficiency, but in dependence on him. Surrender is not weakness. In fact, it is the strongest declaration of faith you can make. It is saying, Lord, I place this day in your hands. I release my need to control every outcome, because I trust in your perfect will. This trust is where renewal begins. Each morning offers an invitation to be reshaped, to be cleansed of yesterday's burdens, and to step forward lighter, freer, and more aligned with his purpose. Psalm 139 reminds us, Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. When you pray these words in the early hours, you are opening your heart to God's refining touch. You are inviting him to remove what does not belong, to wash away the stains of fear, pride, or impatience, and to replace them with his peace, humility, and strength. This act of surrender transforms not only your heart but also the way you live. Imagine beginning your day by laying down the weight of worry and receiving instead the assurance of God's promises. The concerns that once clouded your mind lose their power. The decisions that seemed overwhelming become clearer when viewed through the lens of his wisdom. The relationships that felt strained can be softened as his spirit renews your patience and compassion. Isaiah 64:8 offers a powerful image. Yet you, Lord, are our Father. We are the clay. You are the potter. We are all the work of your hand. In morning prayer, we place ourselves willingly on the potter's wheel. We allow his hands to shape us, to mold us, to form us according to his design. This process is not always comfortable, but it is always good. For the potter knows the purpose of the clay better than the clay itself. When you surrender in the morning, you are preparing your soul to walk in alignment with him throughout the day. You begin to notice his guidance more clearly, to hear his whispers in the midst of noise, to see his fingerprints in the ordinary. Renewal comes not only as a feeling of peace, but as a transformation in the way you think, speak, and act. Consider the words of Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Morning prayer is where this transformation takes root. It is where you allow his word to shape your thoughts, instead of letting the pressures of the world dictate your outlook. It is where you exchange anxiety for trust, bitterness for grace, and confusion for clarity. Surrender also brings healing. The worries you carry, the regrets that weigh you down, the wounds that have not yet healed, all of these can be placed at his feet. In prayer, you are not asked to hide them, but to offer them honestly, trusting that his mercy is big enough to cover every pain. Renewal flows when you release what was never meant for you to carry alone. And so, each morning becomes not just a new day, but a new creation. The night fades, the sun rises, and with it, your spirit is refreshed. This is the gift of surrender. To release and to be renewed. To let go and to receive. To lay down and to rise again, filled with the peace that only God can give. From surrender flows strength, and from renewal flows confidence. Once you have laid down your burdens at God's feet, you are able to stand boldly and declare His promises over your life. Morning prayer is not only a time of quiet surrender, but also a time of powerful declaration. It is the moment when you remind your soul and proclaim to the spiritual realm that you belong to God, that His word is your shield, and that His presence is your protection. Isaiah 54:17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." These are not empty words, they are divine assurance. To begin your day with this declaration is to step into the world clothed in confidence, knowing that whatever the enemy may try, it will not succeed, for the Lord Himself is your defender. Psalm 91:4 paints another image of safety. He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. When you rise in the early morning and pray these words, you are wrapping yourself in the armor of God's faithfulness. You are choosing to walk under the shelter of His wings, where no fear can consume and no storm can destroy. Morning declarations are not about denying the reality of challenges. They are about affirming the greater reality of God's promises. The storms may come, but His peace remains. The trials may test, but His strength sustains. The threats may arise, but His protection surrounds. Each declaration becomes a weapon of faith, dismantling fear and silencing doubt. This practice of speaking faith aloud is a way of anchoring your heart in truth. It is telling your soul what to believe before the day gives you reasons to doubt. It is reminding yourself of who God is and who you are in Him. You are not defenseless. You are not forgotten. You are a child of the Most High, covered by His grace, strengthened by His word, and shielded by His power. Ephesians 6 speaks of the armor of God, the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, the shield of faith, the sword of the Spirit. Morning prayer is where you put this armor on. It is where you prepare to step into a world that often wages war on your peace, your hope, and your joy. By declaring His promises, you are not only protecting yourself, but also claiming victory in advance. There is power in speaking these truths. When fear whispers, you respond with faith. When doubt presses in, you answer with Scripture. When temptation calls, you declare your trust in God's strength. This is the rhythm of a heart anchored in prayer. Surrender first, then declaration. Lay down your burdens, then stand in confidence. Bow in humility, then rise in authority. Morning prayer becomes a shield not only for you, but for your family, your loved ones, and your community. Each word you declare sends ripples of protection beyond yourself. You are interceding on behalf of those you care for, covering them in the same shelter you have found in God. And so, as you rise from prayer, you do not rise in fear of the day ahead. You rise with assurance. You rise with courage. You rise with the certainty that you walk under the covering of a faithful God whose promises never fail. This is the heart of morning prayer. Surrender, renewal, and declaration, woven together into a life of unshakable faith. When the heart is surrendered and the spirit has been renewed, the next step is to walk in God's guidance. Morning prayer does not end when you whisper amen. It continues as you carry His presence into every choice, every conversation, and every moment of the day. The stillness of those early hours prepares you to listen more closely, to discern more clearly, and to walk more faithfully in His ways. Psalm 23 offers a timeless picture of this guidance. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness, for His name's sake. These words remind us that the God we seek in prayer is not distant or passive. He is a shepherd who leads. He does not simply observe our lives, He directs them with care and intention. To walk in God's guidance is to recognize that you are not navigating the day alone. Every decision, whether great or small, becomes an opportunity to lean on His wisdom. Proverbs 3:5-6 captures this perfectly. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Prayer in the morning is the act of acknowledging him first, so that every path afterward is straightened by his hand. There is comfort in knowing that God's plans are not random. Jeremiah 29:11 declares, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." When you rise early to pray, you are aligning yourself with those plans. You are saying, "Lord, let today unfold according to your design, not mine." Even when the way forward seems unclear, you can trust that his steps are leading you toward hope, not despair, toward blessing, not harm. In practical ways, this guidance reveals itself throughout the day. A sudden calm in the midst of tension is his whisper. A gentle conviction before speaking words that could wound is his spirit at work. A moment of clarity when facing a difficult choice is his hand directing your path. The time you spend in morning prayer becomes the lens through which you see his guidance more clearly, because your heart is tuned to his voice. Walking in God's guidance also means trusting his timing. Sometimes answers do not come immediately, and the path feels long. But in those moments, you remember that the shepherd is still leading, even when the scenery is unfamiliar. His presence assures you that delay is not denial, and waiting is not wasting. Morning prayer equips you with the patience to follow where he leads, knowing that his timing is always perfect. And so, each day becomes less about striving and more about abiding, less about forcing outcomes and more about trusting his plan, less about leaning on your own understanding and more about listening to his spirit. This is the gift of guidance found in prayer. Not only knowing the way forward, but knowing that the one who leads you is faithful, wise, and good. Morning prayer does not stop with personal renewal and guidance. It extends outward in love. To pray is not only to seek God's blessing for yourself, but to stand in the gap for others, to lift up family, friends, neighbors, and even nations before the throne of grace. Intercession is an act of selfless faith. It is asking God to move mightily in the lives of others, trusting that his love for them is greater than we can comprehend. Scripture calls us to this kind of prayer. 1 Timothy 2:1 urges, "I urge then, first of all, that petitions, prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for all people." When you rise in the morning and include others in your prayers, you are aligning your heart with the heart of Christ, who continually intercedes for us at the right hand of God. Begin with those closest to you. Pray for your family, that God's protection would surround them, that his peace would fill their hearts, and that his wisdom would guide their steps. Pray for healing where there is sickness, restoration where there is brokenness, and strength where there is weakness. Ask that his angels encamp around your home, guarding each life entrusted to your care. Extend your prayers to your community. Lift up your neighbors, your co-workers, and those whose names you may not know but whose burdens are heavy. Pray that kindness, justice, and compassion would flow where division, injustice, or indifference have taken root. Your intercession becomes a light that reaches beyond your own walls, touching lives you may never meet but whom God knows intimately. Then lift your voice for the world. Pray for leaders to act with wisdom and humility. Pray for nations torn by conflict to find peace. Pray for the hungry to be fed, the oppressed to be freed, and the broken to be restored. The early morning, when heaven feels closest, is the perfect time to bring these cries before God, believing that he hears and responds. Intercession also brings revival. Pray for the church across the world, that believers would rise with boldness, that communities of faith would shine like beacons in the darkness, and that a hunger for God's presence would sweep across nations. Revival does not begin with masses. It begins with hearts on their knees. Your prayer in the morning, joined with the prayers of countless others, becomes the seedbed of spiritual awakening. In all of this, remember that intercession is not a burden but a privilege. To carry others to God in prayer is to love them as he loves them. It is to participate in his work of healing and restoration. Each prayer, whether whispered or spoken aloud, is heard by the one who never slumbers nor sleeps. And when you lift others up, you are also lifted, because love poured out is love received. So let your morning prayer reach beyond yourself. Begin with gratitude for what God has done in your life, but then widen the circle. Include those you love, those you know, and those you may never meet. Pray for them with faith, with compassion, and with expectancy. And trust that the God who listens is the same God who acts, who brings peace where there is chaos, hope where there is despair, and life where there is brokenness. As the morning unfolds and prayer has carried you through surrender, renewal, declaration, guidance, and intercession, there is one final movement of the heart: to stand in freedom, to receive healing, and to end with praise. Morning prayer is not only about beginning the day with peace, it is about stepping into the fullness of what God has promised, walking in liberty, and allowing His presence to bring wholeness to every part of your life. 2 Corinthians 3:17 says, "Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom." This freedom is not abstract, it is tangible, and it begins within. The chains of fear, doubt, guilt, and oppression are broken in His presence. When you rise early to pray, you are not just whispering words into the dark. You are standing in the light of His Spirit, declaring that every bondage is shattered in the name of Jesus. The past no longer holds you. The lies of the enemy no longer define you, and the weight of worry no longer binds you. Freedom is often misunderstood as the absence of struggle. But true freedom is the presence of God in the midst of life's struggles, carrying you beyond their power to destroy. It is the assurance that though trials may come, they cannot take what He has given. It is the peace of knowing that no matter what battles arise, you are already victorious in Him. This freedom naturally leads to healing. Healing that touches the body, yes, but also the mind and the heart. Isaiah 53:5 reminds us, "By His stripes we are healed." These words are not limited to physical sickness, they reach into the broken places of the soul. The morning is when wounds feel tender, when the mind remembers the burdens of yesterday. Yet it is also when God draws closest, offering His touch to restore, to mend, and to renew. For some, healing comes as sudden relief. For others, it comes as a slow and gentle restoration. But in every case, it comes. God does not leave His children in brokenness. He is the healer, Jehovah Rapha, the one who makes all things new. In the stillness of morning prayer, you can lay before Him every wound, every fear, every hidden pain, and trust that His love is more powerful than your deepest hurt. From freedom and healing flows praise. Gratitude is the natural response of a heart touched by God's hand. To praise in the morning is to lift your eyes from your circumstances to the greatness of the one who reigns above them. It is to say, "Lord, You are my refuge, my fortress, my deliverer, my song." In that moment, your prayer becomes worship. It is no longer about what you seek from Him, but about who He is. Psalm 100:4 calls us to enter His gates with thanksgiving and His courts with praise. Give thanks to Him and praise His name. This is the perfect way to end your morning prayer, with thanksgiving, with a song in your spirit, and with joy rising in your heart. You leave that sacred hour not only equipped for the day, but transformed by it, carrying with you the fragrance of His presence. As you step forward, remember that morning prayer is not an isolated ritual, but a rhythm of life. It is the daily drawing near that strengthens your faith, shapes your character, and renews your spirit. Each time you choose to rise and seek Him, you are building a foundation that cannot be shaken. You are weaving a pattern of grace into your days, one that will sustain you in times of blessing and in times of trial. And so the journey of morning prayer comes full circle, from stillness to surrender, from renewal to declaration, from guidance to intercession, and now to freedom, healing, and praise. This is the gift God offers when you choose to meet Him early. Peace that anchors, strength that sustains, and love that heals. Carry this truth into your day. You are free, you are healed, and you are never alone. Walk with confidence, not because of who you are, but because of who He is. Live with courage, not because the path is easy, but because His Spirit is within you. And let your heart remain in constant praise, for the one who began the day with you will walk with you through every step that follows.